Oral questions by members.
Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think all of us are aware that in recent weeks, a well-organized campaign funded by foreign money is seeking to create economic chaos in this province and across Canada. The groups that have benefited from this foreign funding include the Wilderness Committee, the Sierra Club, West Coast Environmental Law, Lead Now, Dogwood BC, and Stand.Earth. $4.2 million in U.S. funding has come from U.S. donors, including the Tides Foundation, the Bullitt Foundation, and Wilberforce, to these 6 organizations that are operating here in British Columbia. The question is, to the Environment Minister, will this government stand up today and say that foreign funding of any efforts to shut down the British Columbia economy or to shut down Canada is unacceptable and is wrong?
Government House Leader, Solicitor General, and Minister of Public Safety.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and I appreciate the question from the Leader of the Opposition. But what I want to say to him is this. We're at a very crucial time in this province and in this country in dealing with what is a very serious situation that all of us on this side of the House are trying to resolve along with the provinces and the federal government. And the best thing that this opposition can do is to get on board with this side of the House and find resolutions to the challenges and the problems that we are facing in terms of not just resource development, but issues with business. I understand that they're trying to find a way to be relevant in this debate, Honourable Speaker, and relevant in the issues that we're facing.
Members, Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. As I just said, Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I think their actions speak for themselves. This government's made it clear. We want to find a solution to the challenges that we face. We want to see projects go ahead. We want to see First Nations rights respected and participating in the economy in British Columbia. We want to find a way that people, are protesting legally and that unlawful blockades are down and that this country gets back to work the way that the public wants it to. They need to get on board in doing just that.
Leader of the Official Opposition on a supplemental.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's disappointing to hear that the Solicitor General, who's responsible for law enforcement here in British Columbia, thinks that this side suggests anything but the return to a state of law and order, peace, order, and good government. That's why we're all here. And so the question remains. There have been aggressive examples of prosecution in the United States and in Britain of foreign influence on their internal politics, and yet we've seen nothing in British Columbia. The question arises. American tax returns show that $2.6 million US has been delivered to West Coast Environmental Law, the organization that organizes and manages the legal advice and legal defense of the blockaders here in British Columbia. The Wilderness Committee has received American grants from both the Tides Foundation and the Wilberforce Foundation. On February 12th, the Wilderness Committee tweeted, quote, "Join us in shutting down the BC government," end quote. That is us, particularly the 20 members of the Executive Council who are now under siege as the Government of British Columbia by American-funded organizations here in British Columbia. So the question goes to any member of the Executive Council, perhaps to the Solicitor General who's in charge of law enforcement. Does this government believe that foreign groups should be allowed to fund efforts to shut down the economy of Canada, obstruct rail traffic, and behave in grossly illegal ways that obstruct the daily lives of British Columbians?
Government House Leader, Solicitor General, and Minister of Public Safety.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. As I said a moment ago, all of us in this House want to find solutions to the challenges that we are facing in this country right now, very serious situations that are impacting not just this province, but provinces right across the country. That's why we're working with industry, with other provincial governments and the federal governments to do just that. And I don't want to see anybody trying to shut down the economy of this country, whether they're inside this country or outside this country. But I find it somewhat ironic, Honourable Speaker, to listen to the Leader of the Opposition talk about the influence of foreign money in this province, because, you know, they need to look at their own record when it comes to the influence of foreign money on that party. The BC Liberals, the BC Liberals, Honourable Speaker,
Members.
the BC Liberals, before changes made, Honourable Speaker, by this government in getting big money out of politics, we're more than happy to haul in money from companies that were linked with the Bank of China, Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railway, based in the U.S., Republic Services Waste Management, based in the U.S., Thompson Creek Metals, based in the U.S.
Members.
So, Honourable Speaker,
Members.
Honourable Speaker.
Members, order, please.
Oh, Honourable Speaker, I hear, what were they blockading? Let's put this way. They were paying to sit next to the leaders who were making the decisions, Honourable Speaker.
Leader of the Official Opposition on a second supplemental.
It's indeed very disappointing to hear the Solicitor General stand up and criticize a political party that is engaged in our democratic process when the whole issue is about groups who want to shut down the democratic process. I'm not asking about funding of the NDP. I'm not asking about funding of political parties, which is what the Solicitor General seems to want to talk about. I'm asking about the groups that are running across railroad tracks, attempting to derail trains, blocking ambulances, and preventing people from getting home after a long day at work. The Solicitor General needs to focus on the mischief here, and it's not in this room, it's the people out there who don't believe in the rule of law. That's what we're talking about, and that's what the question's directed to. So let's talk about some of the more specifics. American tax returns, and who knows what else is out there that doesn't show up on American tax returns? Who knows where this money is coming from? We only have American sources to track. $316,795,000 US to Stand.Earth. $490,467 from the Tides Foundation to Dogwood, BC. $641,048 from 4 US foundations to the Sierra Club. So the obvious question is, this is a coordinated assault on the Canadian economy. It's a coordinated assault on the policies of this government that have been jointly endorsed by this House to develop the economy of British Columbia, and this funding is directed to wreck it all. So will the Solicitor General please answer the question? Is he prepared to entertain legislation that will ban foreign funding from militant groups in British Columbia?
Government House Leader, Solicitor General, and Minister of Public Safety.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. As I said a moment ago, there is no place in this province for outside interference in trying to disrupt the economy of British Columbia or Canada. I hear the member saying, do something. Well, guess what? The police are doing their job, Honourable Speaker. The police are...
Members, we shall hear the response. Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. The police are doing their job in a difficult situation. They're enforcing injunctions. They're taking down barricades. Honourable member, those issues are here in this province and in this country, and they're being resolved in this province and this country. And as I just said, there's no place for that in this province.
Members, we shall hear the response. Thank you.
That is why this province and other provinces right across this country are working with the federal government, First Nations, industry, to resolve these issues, to get blockades down, and to ensure that the economy of this province and this country continues.
Member for Skeena.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Haudenosaunee Nation Chief and Council have been working hard for 15 years to bring an end to the social issues that plague not only our own band, but bands all across BC and Canada. And we've been successful over the last 15 years. Through hard work, we now have jobs, we have training programs, and we have taken the real first steps 15 years ago to break the cycle of poverty. But now you see these groups funded by American money coming in and trying to tell my people that they're ignorant and don't know what's best for them. So my question is to the Solicitor General, will he join me and categorically reject this foreign money that is being used to keep our people from a secure future?
Government House Leader, Solicitor General and Minister of Public Safety.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. We completely reject foreign interference in the affairs of British Columbia, whether it be through money or otherwise. I only wish, Honourable Speaker, that side of the House had rejected the interference of foreign money in our economy for the 16 years when they sat on this side. Whether it came through bank drafts, donations to sit next to leaders at fundraising dinners, or in duffel bags into casinos.
Members, member for Skeena.
Thank
On
you,
a
Mr.
supplemental.
Speaker.
Thank you.
So, I'm sick and tired of these groups that have hijacked Aboriginal issues for their own self-interests and are creating tensions and adversity for First Nations in BC and Canada. We know that the main organizer of the blockade at the Port of Vancouver is not even Canadian. She's an American. She's moved here from the United States 8 years ago. So again, my question is to the Solicitor General. Will he join me and denounce this foreign funding of blockades so that and the people from these other countries that want to tell us how to live?
Government House Leader, Solicitor General and Minister of Public Safety.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I thought that was the answer that I just gave the Honourable Member, that there is no place in this province or anywhere else in this country for outside interference. And I'll also remind the member that it was this side of the House that put limits on third-party donations, Honourable Speaker. Again, something that they did not do. And I'll also remind them once again.
Members.
And I'll also remind them once again that I'm glad that after 16 years of doing nothing about big money in politics, or how much you paid a ticket to sit next to the leader, or dirty money coming into the country in duffel bags, that they're concerned about that now finally too.
House Leader, third party.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And I want to start by thanking the Minister of Mental Health and Addictions for her visit to my riding last fall. We invited the Minister so that she could learn about the terrible impact that addictions and substance misuse is having on our community, and presented her with a proposal for temporary treatment facilities and safe drug supply pilot in Cowichan. The proposal did not receive funding. Since her visit, the problem has only worsened. The Cowichan Overdose Prevention Site has received over 54,000 visits to date, averaging over 622 visits per week in the last 3 months. These numbers are second only to the Harbour and Rock Bay Landing in Victoria, and thus higher than all other rural or suburban OPS sites on the island. Yet the response from higher level of government has not been commensurate with this data. At the end of December, we had 2 violent deaths in Duncan and another unrelated stabbing last week. Our homeless outreach staff is fearful for their safety. Other frontline workers expressed despair about the outlook of an epidemic that shows signs of only growing. Residents are frustrated and angry. My question is for the Minister of Mental Health and Addictions. What is the government's plan today for the unprecedented problems arising from substance abuse in Cowichan?
Minister of Mental Health and Addictions.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and thank you to the member of the third party for her question. And I want to begin by acknowledging and thanking the member for her advocacy and for her passion on these very, very important issues in her community. I was pleased to visit her community last fall and also a second time a year before that. And I want to acknowledge the very, very serious challenges that exist in her community as well as in communities across British Columbia, Honourable Speaker. And we are very much coping today with the consequences of a system of mental health and addictions care that has been neglected for many years. I know that's hard on communities, it's hard on people. We are embarking on major actions. We're already taking concrete actions in Cowichan and across the province. Across British Columbia, we've invested $10 million in grants for community agencies that provide counselling at low cost or no cost, because, Honourable Speaker, access to mental health and addictions care should not depend on the size of your bank account, but up until now it has. We're beginning to change that. And in Duncan, the Hayulelam House of Friendship received a grant that will enable them to provide counselling services for 700 more sessions for people living with mental health and substance use issues. We are very proud of our partnership with First Nations in helping to build a system that is led by Indigenous people, Indigenous mental health and wellness solutions. And as part of that, the Cowichan tribes received $184,000 grant for culturally safe primary care and mental health and substance use care. And, Honourable Speaker, housing and supportive housing is a critical part of this. If we're addressing some of the root causes that relate to mental health and addictions and the overdose crisis, and the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing has made record investments in housing, including in supportive housing, and in Duncan, BC Housing is actively working on several new housing options for people experiencing homelessness, including support services. And, Honourable Speaker, we recognize that there is much, much more to do. We have many years of neglect to overcome, but we are getting started, Honourable Speaker, and with political will and working together, we will get there.
House Leader, third party on a supplemental.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and I want to commend the Minister and the government for working on these upstream solutions to a crisis that we are now seeing the results of downstream impacts. However, we are seeing this crisis in real time right now in Cowichan, and we are desperate. In response to the BC Coroner's Service report on illicit drug deaths, Provincial Health Officer Dr. Bonnie Henry was quoted saying decriminalization and pharmaceutical options for those who are dependent on toxic street drugs is something that needs to be considered. This is exactly what the Cowichan Leadership Group is asking for. We need access to safe drug supply, temporary treatment facilities, and transitional housing for people coming out of treatment, and we need it urgently. We are in crisis, and we need a crisis response. The Cowichan leaders have written to 10 separate provincial ministries outlining the escalating problems in the Cowichan Valley that are rising from substance use and homelessness. My question is again to the Minister of Mental Health and Addictions. What is your government and ministry going to do today on these urgent needs to help the Cowichan community out of this crisis?
Minister of Mental Health and Addictions.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and thank you again to the member opposite. There certainly is an enormous amount of work to do, and we are working overtime to build that better system of mental health and addictions, including ramping up every single day, every week, every month, our response to the overdose crisis. We have, in every health region across the province, Honourable Speaker, we now have access to rapid addiction services, rapid addiction clinics, and in Cowichan in particular, we've added more inpatient addiction medicine consult services at the Cowichan Hospital. We've also expanded same-day walk-in services and counselling in Duncan. And earlier this week, the coroner reported for the first time since this crisis began that we've seen a decline in deaths across the province for the first time, including in Cowichan. But, Honourable Speaker, we recognize that whether it's in Cowichan or province-wide, reduction of 36% of deaths province-wide, 32% in the Cowichan area, every single one of these deaths is a tragedy. It is devastating for the families and the communities involved. And we will have more to say very soon on additional supports to the Cowichan Valley to support further treatment options and community wellness. But, Honourable Speaker, we are working overtime. We are working with all of our partners on the front line, including working with our partners in Cowichan Valley. Together, Honourable Speaker, we will get this done, and we will get the support to folks in the Cowichan Valley and across British Columbia that they so very much deserve.
Member Abbotsford West.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. It's interesting, isn't it? In other circumstances, the government, we saw it here again today, has vilified the entry of foreign money into BC. But when that foreign money is flowing to friends of theirs who are using it with the objective of shutting down our economy, they have gone strangely silent. The foreign money we're talking about, Mr. Speaker, is flowing to organizations that enjoy charitable tax status. And that status bestows significant tax advantages upon them. My simple question to the Finance Minister is, does the Finance Minister believe that illegal blockades and organized attempts to shut down our national and provincial economies qualifies as charitable activities? And if she does not, will she today call upon the Canada Revenue Agency to withdraw the charitable tax status of these organizations who are using foreign money to try and shut down our economy?
Government House Leader, Solicitor General and Minister of Public Safety.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and I thank the member for his question, which relates, is done at the federal level. But I take note of his concern where he says money is flowing to friends, and that that's not right. And I share that. I share that. Because Honourable Speaker, that member, along with many members, sat on this side of the House. And one of the biggest industries in this province, the foundational industry in this province, is the forest industry. And between 2005 and 2017, they took in more than almost $250,000 from Weyerhaeuser, a US-based company, Honourable Speaker, that launched a softwood lumber complaint against the forest industry of this province. So if you want to talk about cozying up to people wanting to destroy an industry in this province, why don't you just look in the mirror?
Members, this is not a productive use of question period. Thank you. Member Abbotsford West on a supplemental.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. Well, I'm disappointed and a bit surprised that confronted by a suggestion about action the government could take, the response from the government benches would be a diatribe of partisanship. The problem
Members, we shall hear the question. Thank you.
The members of the government benches may not understand this, but the problem Canadians are having is there are no consequences. Back in January, the Premier said, if protesters are going to engage in illegal activities, there should be consequences. And yet, rail traffic is disrupted illegally by protesters to the point where farmers are worried about getting enough feed for their animals. There are no consequences. Ports are being blockaded illegally to the point where people are being laid off from their jobs. There are no consequences. Those that are working don't know if they can get home at night because their commuter rail is being illegally blockaded. There are no consequences. Members of the cabinet have had their offices invaded and illegally occupied, Mr. Speaker, and there are no consequences. So here's a chance for the government, here's a chance for, in this case, the finance minister, to stand up and demonstrate that actually she is serious about imposing consequences on those who are using foreign money and unlawful illegal blockades to shut down her economy. And maybe I'll use language that the government seems to like. Will she use every tool in the toolbox, including calling on the Canadian Revenue Agency to withdraw the charitable status of organizations that are using foreign money to shut down the Canadian economy and put Canadians out of work?
Government House Leader, Solicitor General and Minister of Public Safety.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and I'd like to thank the member for his question and his words, because, Honourable Speaker, when it comes to diatribes, he goes with the best of them, Honourable Speaker. Let's be clear. There are consequences. It's called a justice system. It's called police doing their job and making arrests, which they've been doing in Vancouver, which they've been doing at blockades. Oh, okay.
Members, order, please. Order.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I know that member was a former Solicitor General, but clearly he didn't listen to the briefings he got when he took the position, because he would know that Solicitor General does not command or does not direct the police on making arrests. He should know that the police are professionals who have a very difficult job to do. They go out to a situation and they assess it. They assess it to ensure the safety of the public. They assess it to ensure that they can enforce and do their job professionally, which they do. And what they don't need is armchair quarterbacking from the peanut gallery on the other side, Honourable Speaker. Our judicial system is independent and at arm's length. I guess he didn't pay attention when the briefing books were presented to him when he became Solicitor General, and he would know that. He would know that Crown prosecutors decide on things such as charges, that our court systems will decide on trials and consequences in terms of people who are breaking the law. And what I will tell you again, Honourable Speaker, and I will make sure that they know, that no one on this side of the House supports illegal, unlawful blockades, that they will be taken down, that when injunctions are necessary, we will get injunctions which have been happening, whether it's for this place, whether it's for highways, whether it's for railways, that they come with enforcement orders. But let's be clear. We have a law enforcement system in this province, and they are doing their job.
Member for Prince George Fillmore.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it has been more than 3 weeks since the blockades have begun to paralyze the economy of British Columbia, and they're not stopping. As we speak, we understand that anti-pipeline protesters have shut down the Pat Bay Highway. The blockade location is apparently just blocks away from the Saanich Peninsula Hospital, and it will block all traffic on a major artery to the international airport and the BC ferry terminal. And in fact, let's talk about the messages that are being sent to British Columbians by members on that side of the House. Just yesterday, the member from Nanaimo said, and I quote, "We're in a very tough time right now with a lot of pipeline controversy and protesters right in front of the legislature," which in many ways I celebrate. To have climate action and such visible support for reconciliation is something we've waited for, some of us, for our whole lives. Well, I can assure the members opposite there's not a lot of celebrating going on today for the people that have been impacted by yet another closure funded by foreign funds in this province. It is time for the minister to stand up. He said he agrees that there shouldn't be foreign funds flowing. Then it's time for him to do something. What specific actions will he take to ensure that foreign funds no longer impact the economy of the people of British Columbia?
Attorney General.
Ministry of Attorney General lawyers were in court this morning and obtained an injunction with an enforcement clause against the blockade of the highway.